So welcome to France 2022, The Campaign. It's our weekly show covering the mother of all election, the presidential election.
Absolutely, and every week we've been getting analysis, insights and reports from the campaign trail. Mark, what have you got for us?
Well, this is it. The presidential race has started in earnest, and while the war in Ukraine casts a large shadow, candidates have been hitting the campaign trail this past weekend. Here's the recap of the week with Shirley Sitbon.
Marion Maréchal is the ally Éric Zemmour has been eyeing. More than any of the politicians he has taken away from Marine Le Pen's party. Maréchal is Le Pen's own niece and a former MP.
Elle est blonde comme une sirène. Elle est belle, elle est de droite. Marion.
Je suis absolument convaincu qu'Éric Zemmour est le mieux placé dans cette élection présidentielle. En un temps record, vous avez déjà commencé à construire cette grande union à droite que Éric réussit à faire vivre chaque jour.
Zemmour hopes to regain points he's lost in polls due to his pro-Russian positions. Jean-Luc Mélenchon was also accused of being soft on Vladimir Putin. The far-left candidate still wants France to leave NATO and is opposed to sending weapons to Ukraine, but he has toughened his rhetoric regarding Russia.
Stop à la guerre! Stop à l'invasion de l'Ukraine! Abat l'armée qui envahit l'Ukraine!
Unlike Mélenchon, Yannick Jadot from the traditionally pacifist Green Party wants to deliver more weapons to Ukraine.
Oui, il faut soutenir et continuer d'armer la résistance ukrainienne. Nous étions tellement heureux en France quand les Anglais et les Américains armaient la résistance en France. Slava Ukraini!
Candidates are divided over Ukrainian refugees. Zemmour says some could come to France under certain conditions. Le Pen says she would open the door wider, but only temporarily.
Vous savez, déjà, on peut accueillir les femmes, les enfants qui fuient.
Oui, je sais.
Vous voyez, voilà, on les accueille, on les met en sécurité et le temps que la guerre s'arrête, quoi.
Fabien Roussel noted the far right was not as tolerant of refugees from Syria.
Toutes les limites de leur discours, comme si aujourd'hui il était possible de trier les réfugiés, de les trier en fonction des guerres, en fonction des pays où se déroulent ces guerres.
While remaining focused on the war in Ukraine, Emmanuel Macron took the time to launch his campaign with an elaborate promotional video.
Il faut que le candidat puisse présenter son projet au pays, mais il faut aussi que le président continue à faire son travail. Donc, appelez-moi monsieur le candidat, il n'y a aucun problème.
For Macron's rivals, there is no valid reason stopping the French president from participating in a debate.
Le bilan d'Emmanuel Macron a des allures de dépôt de bilan. Il faut qu'il y ait dans les semaines qui viennent un vrai débat démocratique dans notre pays. C'est sain d'avoir un débat démocratique, projet contre projet.
In the farming show, Le Pen showed off dancing skills. Zemmour followed in her footsteps. Meanwhile, Jean Lassalle, who presents himself as a man of the people, couldn't get any friendlier with the crowd. That's all for this week, folks. Until we meet again.
Okay, so it's been quite a busy week. Well, as of this Monday, we have the final roster of presidential candidates.
Indeed, we do. 12 of them on the starting line, vying for the Elysée Palace. Maya, yet again, takes a closer look at the competitors.
The race is on to unseat Emmanuel Macron. At age 44, the incumbent is seeking a second term. The pro-European centrist leads the pack in the polls, despite a presidency punctuated by social unrest. These three right-wing candidates are his main challengers. Marine Le Pen, the far-right hopeful who lost the 2017 runoff to Macron, is neck and neck in the polls with Éric Zemmour, a former TV pundit turned far-right politician. His populist discourse has prompted Conservative candidate Valérie Pécresse to lurch to the right.
Mes chers amis,
She calls herself the French Iron Lady. The left's best hope appears to be Jean-Luc Mélenchon. The 70-year-old politician is the only left-wing candidate with double-digit polls, far ahead from his former ally, Fabien Roussel, the communist, from Yannick Jadot, the ecologist, from Anne Hidalgo, the socialist mayor of Paris, and from the two Trotskyist candidates, Nathalie Arthaud and Philippe Poutou. Finally, two 2017 contenders are back in the starting blocks, the strongly Eurosceptic Nicolas Dupont-Aignan and former shepherd Jean Lassalle. Their chances of being elected are nil, but these French candidates will attract their fair share of voters, especially among disillusioned citizens who have two more options, the spoiled ballot or abstention.
Well, let's get some more analysis now about the beginning of the campaign. We're joined by our campaign commentator, Angela Diffley. Hi there, Angela.
Hi, Tom.
Angela, obviously, the war in Ukraine has totally upended the beginning of this campaign.
Yeah, it completely has. It has, firstly, because it is now dominating the airwaves, and it's extremely difficult for the candidates to get their campaigns noticed by the general public. That will probably change now where the campaign has officially started. The media are by law bound to give a certain amount of attention to this. So hopefully for the candidates, they will get a bit more airtime. The other reason for which the campaign has been upended by Ukraine is because it has suddenly become the number 2 priority of the French people, whereas it wouldn't have even been asked before the question. Suddenly, right after cost of living, the war in the Ukraine, whether it will affect people, whether it will spread, how much it might impact the economy, all of that is a real worry for French people now. And so that new priority has appeared from nowhere. I also think that because the war has given this massive boost to Emmanuel Macron. We're going to look at the polls shortly, but he was already far ahead. Now he is way ahead. And it's put the other candidates in a very difficult position because many people now think, well, this is a foregone conclusion. I'm not really interested in the campaign anymore. And I also think that the campaign... Another way I would say the Ukraine issue has changed the campaign is that the tenor has changed slightly. It's a bit less divisive and nasty than we had been led to expect. A bit more careful language now.
Right. Obviously, this will likely change, as you pointed out. We'll come back to Emmanuel Macron in a minute. How has the campaign affected the other candidates in the polls?
Yeah, Macron has shot ahead in the polls. We'll take a look at him a little bit more closely later on in the programme. Obviously, in a time of war, people want stability, continuity, and so that would probably explain the boost in his polls. Two candidates, Éric Zemmour and Marine Le Pen, on the nationalist right, have both suffered from the fact that they were rather vocal about their admiration for Emmanuel Macron, for Vladimir Putin before. And that, of course, they have been busy rowing back on that this week, because that is bad news. They have also suffered from the fact that immigration, integration, Islamism, their signature issues have suddenly gone down the voters' list of priorities. So that's created a difficulty for those two. I would say that Zemmour has suffered more. He badly misjudged the mood on Ukrainian refugees, whereas he said, I don't think we should take them, whereas Marine Le Pen said, these are different refugees. She said they're mostly women and children. Most of them want to go back. They're not like, as she sees, those in places like Calais, where she says it's people, very often men, exploiting the asylum system and who are merely economic migrants. Jean-Luc Mélenchon has come up with the idea that France should leave NATO altogether and be part of a non-aligned alliance for a better world. And Valérie Pécresse has criticised Macron a bit and tried to capitalise on the discomfort of some of the other previously pro-Putin candidates.
Really striking looking at those polls, Angela, just how much Macron has shot ahead in the polls. And now we know Macron is a candidate. And today this Monday, he's been holding his first public campaign event in Poissy, which is near Paris. Let's listen to what he said.
Je suis candidat depuis quelques jours.
dans un contexte qui est un peu particulier. Comme j'ai dit, je vais présider jusqu'au bout notre pays, dans un contexte qui va imposer de continuer à prendre des décisions jusqu'au bout. Et donc, je serai président durant ces jours et ces semaines autant que je le dois, mais je serai candidat à chaque fois que je le peux.
Well, we can now cross live to our own Claire Paccalin, who joins us from this rally. It's just wrapped up. Claire, this seems like it was a carefully scripted first campaign event for Emmanuel Macron.
Well, as you mentioned, I'm in Poissy, about a 45-minute drive outside of Paris. The local town mayor here is a close ally of Emmanuel Macron, and he brought around 300 local people here for a question and answer session, really, with Emmanuel Macron. You can see it's ended now and people are just filing out behind me. It was a low-key, toned-down affair, nothing like the big rallies that we saw 5 years ago when Emmanuel Macron was running to be president the first time. And as we just heard in that soundbite, he only just declared that he was an official candidate, weeks or months after the other 11 candidates in this race. That, of course, is partly due to the current crisis in UK and the conflict there. And Emmanuel Macron did say that he will continue to be president and to fill up his responsibilities as long as his mandate lasts and be a candidate whenever he can be. Now, I was in Paris yesterday at a market with my colleague Marie Schuster from the French channel, from France 24's French channel, and we met some of his campaigners who are, of course, happy to be finally out on the campaign trail now that they know that Emmanuel Macron is an official candidate. And we were finding out how they're getting on trying to convince Parisians that they should vote for Emmanuel Macron for a second term as president. After weeks of waiting, Emmanuel Macron's supporters can finally campaign for their candidate. There was little suspense about his intention to run for a second term, but Macron delayed announcing his candidacy because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Bonjour Madame Emmanuel Macron, la lettre français. Bonjour Monsieur Emmanuel Macron. Ah, merci beaucoup. Le fait que voilà, le président est désormais candidat, c'est plus simple pour nous, c'est une incarnation. Je crois qu'il a aussi envie de rentrer dans le débat, de pouvoir échanger, de pouvoir faire valoir aussi ses idées, ses convictions pour les 5 ans à venir.
Macron's presidency was marked by the Gilets jaunes or yellow vest protest movement. Martine, a yellow vest, makes her frustration with the president clear when his campaigners offer her a leaflet.
C'est facile de donner des petits papiers aux gens, mais quand il y a le malheur, hein, on vous voit plus sur le marché, on n'entend plus parler de vous, parce que vous avez été élu pendant 5 ans.
A calmer discussion follows.
Je vais vous en prendre un.
Il dit, j'ai appris. Martine, though, assures us that Macron will not be getting her vote. But the war in Ukraine is dominating the campaign, and so far, mostly in Macron's favor.
On est omnibulé par la guerre. Donc au final, on s'est dit voilà, on va garder notre président. C'était peut-être pas si mal, et puis voilà.
Il a un boulevard de toute façon. Au fait, l'avantage avec Macron, c'est qu'il a prouvé quelques trucs quand même. Par rapport à d'autres, les autres, ils font que parler.
At the moment, Macron is far ahead of his rivals in the polls. But his supporters are keen not to appear too victorious too soon.
Non, ça n'est pas plié. Je crois qu'il faut toujours se méfier de ce sentiment-là. C'est le pire en politique. L'arrogance peut tuer, l'humilité jamais.
There are still 5 weeks to go until the first round of voting. And in politics, that's plenty of time for everything to change for Emmanuel Macron.
Okay, we're nearly out of time, but let's finish on a lighter note, Mark.
Yes, amid all this war talk, it was, as we saw earlier in the recap, the annual agricultural fair in Paris, and the sheep have taken over the Champs-Élysées, 22 of them. Here is this image of unusual Champs-Élysées in Paris. Thank you all for watching. This was the 4th edition of France 2022, The Campaign. We'll see you next Monday at 8:15 p.m. Paris time here on France 24.